Hello, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Cotati Community Police Advisory Committee. May we have a roll call?
Committee Member Cosbrook. Here. Committee Member Richardson.
Here.
Committee Member Williams.
Here.
Vice Chair Jarrett.
Here.
Chair Lawton.
Here. Thank you. Next, we will read the land acknowledgement and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Chair, may I speak on that matter?
Sure.
Thank you, Good evening, committee members. Former Councilman George Barrett. It's really good to see you. I think I've attended almost every meeting of this new body, and I've spoken up, and I've emailed you and so forth. And I just want to remind you something I think is very important about this land acknowledgement. I'm not the only one in town who thinks it's very silly, just silliness. I and others were able to convince Mayor Ben Ford and the council to move this item to the back of the meeting so that those of us taxpayers who want to be here and work with the government and participate don't have to sit through something this silly. So they did put it at the end, and we applauded them for doing that. I think at the last meeting, I also asked you folks to do that too. Probably a good thing to follow the lead of the city manager and the city council to put this at the end of the meeting because it is controversial. I believe that the land acknowledgement is very politically motivated to appease the casino. As some of you who've been here a long time, Jeff and Carol, been here a long time, before the casinos came to town, we had nothing like this. This is all political poppycock to hope and pray that some money from the casino comes down this way to Cotati. Some mitigation money, maybe another casino out on Stony Point or someplace that's going to bring revenue to this town. And I just want you to remember it's also false and misleading. The Paleo Indians were here for thousands of years. Scientists and biologists surmise through evidence that they probably killed off the woolly mammoth. They hunted them into extinction. And I don't think the Paleo Indians or Miwok Indians or the Pomo Indians were any more virtuous and took no better care than my neighbors here in front of me. You've all taken care of the parks, the roads, the air, the water. You guys, we've all done a fantastic job. I don't know why we're singling this particular species of Homo sapiens to have any special acknowledgement than any of the rest of us deserve. It's political nonsense, and it's beneath the body here in front of me. We were able to convince at least the council to move it to the end as not to be so offensive, and they've done that. And I've spoken about this in the past. This isn't the place for political theater, although I've seen my share. It's not the place. I have more respect for the body and our police department to hold a straightforward meeting. And with the little time I have left, I'll go to the next item about the Pledge of Allegiance. I want to thank you all for leaving the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the meeting. That's very traditional all across this country, while our city council has put it at the end of the meeting. And I can't tell you why. I don't know if they hate America. I don't know if they're embarrassed about our system of government. They have no respect for their men and women who've fallen in battle. I'm not really sure. I've asked them. They did, when I was on the council, they did remove the moment of silence that had been here for some 40 years. Over my objection, it's a step in the wrong direction. You can see the slippery slope. Moment of silence, then they removed the Pledge of Allegiance. I was over in the city of Sonoma. They don't even have the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. And hopefully we're not becoming that woke. But I would just thank you for leaving it at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you, folks, and good luck tonight.
Thank you, George.
Chair, before you move on, I'd suggest, since you've opened public comment, take public comment online as well. If there is any.
We'll open it to public comment? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Lawton. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. Seeing no hands on Zoom, that will end public comment.
Thank you. The City of Cotati recognizes that we're on ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for a millennium. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on. I will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, next we will move on approval of the minutes from our meeting of May 20th, 2026. Do any committee members have any changes to the minutes? Are there any members of the public wishing to make a comment on this item?
Speaking with our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. There are no hands on Zoom. That will end public comment.
Are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
Chair, one brief thing before we move on from approval of minutes, just make sure we get an approval from the committee, and then we can go to the next item. So we need a motion and a second,
Okay.
and then a vote.
I'd like to motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 You approve the minutes? Do you approve the minutes? Yes. Okay. You need to say aye. That's okay. Next, I'd like to open the meeting for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment at this time? Now is there anyone that want to make a comment at this time? Any public member?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lawton. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a comment. The first hand is from Lori. You have the floor.
Hi, committee members. Good to see y'all. What I wanted to talk to you guys about was the city is dictating tonight that you do the license plate readers but that's their direction. And you have lots of flexibility to what to take to them rather than being dictated what they want to you guys. And so what I want to discuss is the lack of internal policies when either the police officers, because it's a small force, or the city staff, because it's small staff, they don't send things out for outside review. One situation was my 89-year-old mother in June. Her car was towed for tags, for expired tags, even though we begged the officer who was a sergeant, not to tow vehicles that our household with two medically fragile people, even though it wasn't allowed. It's down in the police report as unfounded because I made a complaint that it was not against, use of force or anything like that, but that it was against community standards. And of course, because it came back unfounded in your report, because it was the second and third in command of the police department that it was against, and so they're going to find themselves unfounded when it needed to go to, and I asked for it to go to an outside agency, and nothing happened. The bigger picture, that's that situation. City staff are under investigation for multiple misuse of funds, and there might be a grand jury investigation, and still, because of misuse of funds, certain people there have not, the police department or the city has not sent it out to outside sources like the sheriffs or something to, or the Attorney General's office for investigation or anything. They just come back with an unfounded. So between these two, that the police department is so small, they don't do internal investigations, and the city would rather litigate things and cover them up than have them come public and be investigated. There's no proper administrative review. And so I hope you guys can discuss this and develop policies about, such as mine, that when it's about what's best for the community and community policing, whether it goes out to another agency or not. So thank you.
Any other public comment? George?
Thank you. I too believe there's a cover-up here, a major cover-up, and I would ask for the board's assistance with this. I really don't know where to start, but I'll try my best. About 9 months ago, Ms. Lori Alderman, myself, and Mr. Cheromello in the back, as a supporting complainant, brought evidence before the police department on a cover-up, perjury during a formal city administrative hearing, extortion, and we were asked to bring as much paperwork and evidence as we could to the police department before Officer Wardell and Officer Yu. And we've been stonewalled, we've been given the runaround, we've given all the evidence necessary, even the names of attorneys who were involved in this hearing, and it's gone nowhere. And it disturbs me to no end that it smells like a cover-up. And I love our police chief. I think he's fabulous. I'm very worried that he's under a lot of pressure right now to sweep this under the rug and protect his boss and other city staff members. It's serious business. Okay, we've gotten to a point now where we've got to take this to either you have to get involved, or we got to take it to the next level, take it to the state attorney general, the FBI office in San Francisco, and the DA, and find some agency that's going to see justice preserved here. And I'm always more than welcome to sit down with any of you over a cup of coffee and show you what we have, discuss this matter in more detail, because I'm probably not being that articulate tonight about it. But you need to know, this is why you're here, is that we have a gut feeling, and we think we have evidence, that there's a huge cover-up going on. And it's serious business. It'll bankrupt this town once word gets out. People need to be investigated, indicted, tried before a jury of our peers, sentenced, and possibly go to jail. Lose their law licenses, which is one of the charges here, perjury by a city attorney in writing. I've never seen anything this serious before this town. I'm asking you to search your morals and values and look into this. This is your shining moment to do something with this committee. You can't just be a rubber stamp here. So I would like to offer my assistance to you and hope it gets better before it gets worse.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, this is corruption. Once again, we see staff circling the wagons to protect the people that have been accused of wrongdoing. I don't know that this is on this committee to take action. But if I was the chief of police in my town of Dixon, our mayor ran his truck into somebody else's car, a Tesla, said he didn't know anything about it. Did our chief of police investigate? No. They gave it to the sheriff's department. Or they brought in the highway patrol. I take it back. They didn't give it to the sheriff's department. Normally, when there's an internal investigation, you don't investigate yourself. You bring in an outside agency. This has not happened here. Mr. Wardell, Officer Wardell, Tyler Wardell, I've tried to contact him several times. He called me once, and that's all. I went to the police department over here, asked to see him. There's always an excuse why he wasn't available. Yes, I was a personal witness. I saw what was going on. I heard what was going on. I heard the statements of Mr. Robert Smith, and he's a liar. And lying bold-faced about things. That's perjury. He has a duty as an attorney to be honest, and he isn't. He's simply doing the actions that the staff is directing him to do. Now, I don't expect you to rectify this, but I think that you should be recommending to your police chief that he bring in an outside agency before we take it to the state attorney general. I don't think that's what should happen. It should be done much more locally than that. I have no faith in your Sonoma County DA. I've contacted her about various infractions, and they give me excuses. How in the world do you have the nerve to tell a person that you have a new set of codes and you're going to follow traditional requirements instead of the new code? That's your district attorney. They replied to me and told me that. So I don't trust them. I don't trust the superior courts. They're all in the pockets of the cities. I've experienced it in Solano County, and it happens here too. I just hate to see this go to further litigation. There's already litigation that has begun, but from what I have seen at this point, the persons involved that we're making accusations against aren't the ones being accused because they have prosecutorial immunity. Well, that may be and it may not be. I don't know until it goes to court. I'm not taking it to court, but other people are. So in order to head this off before it gets any deeper, I think that you as a commission should be making the recommendation to the chief that he gets an outside agency in here, and then we can see whether there's any substance to our accusations. Thank you very much.
My name's Adrienne Lobby. I'm a resident of Cotati. I was a big supporter of setting this committee up, and tonight I am so happy that you're here. I feel like this is part of what we ask you to do, is to hear citizens' complaints, and we're hearing some. And because we are a small town, and because many people and know each other, we can evaluate some of the necessity to respond to some things. And so I leave this in your hands. I feel confident that you will handle it correctly. Thank you.
Are there any public comments?
There are no further hands on Zoom. That will end public comment.
Okay, so we will move to, next we're going to move to the matters at hand. Our first item of business is the police chief quarterly report for the committee. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, ma'am. All right, if we can get Kevin up there. All right. So good evening, everybody. I'm going to go through the quarterly report for our Q2, and which, by the way, is April, May, and June. So April, May, and June is our quarterly, our second quarterly report. Next slide, please. All right, jumping right into it. So our calls for service for and officer-initiated activity, our full activity total events was 3,430. Comparatively, last year in Q2 was 3,088, and about a quarter of last year was about 3,220 events. So we're in the same ballpark as we were before, and as is typical, the split between officer-initiated and calls for service is roughly about 50-50-ish. Next slide. Our total arrests for Q2 was 114. Last year, in the same time period, was 134, and about a quarter of all last year was 127. So again, we're a little bit below, but again, we're still in that same ballpark there. Next slide. Our top 5 arrest categories were driving under the influence, vandalism, simple assault, aggravated assault. Both of those are basically, you can put those together as you know, assaults, which is like batteries, fighting, that sort of thing, bar fights, that sort of thing. And then finally, drug narcotic offenses, as is obvious, our DUI enforcement and the proactivity of our officers in keeping the driving safe around Cotati is at the top of everything by quite a bit. Next slide. We had one citizen complaint in Q2 of 2026. The complaint was unfounded. I will note, and I can say this again at Q3, the complainant also filed another electronic complaint for the same incident on the same complaint. That complaint, they did that recently. So it's the same complaint as what showed up in Q2 that was investigated. So I only mention it because that complaint will not also show up on Q3. It's showing up here on Q2. So, and it was a procedural complaint, by the way. Next slide. And I already mentioned that was an unfounded complaint. Next slide. All right, our use of force, I always like to keep this up here. So our use of force was 0 in terms of our Department of Justice use of force, which is usually regarding shooting or use of forces that involved great bodily injury or death. So in those categories, we didn't have anything to report for Q2. Next slide. So for uses of force, we had 10 events with a total of 13 use of force tools or options being utilized within those 10 events. So again, just to remind you, you could have 10 incidents that happened, but you may have 2 uses of force, so we count all of that, so that's why you have a larger number with potentially the 13 out of the 10. One thing to note, it does say that 8 of the 10 use of force instances resulted in arrest or custody, so that means 2 did not go to jail. Anytime that something like that pops up, there's always a question, okay, why'd you use force but no one went to jail? So in these 2 instances, I'll bring them up. So one was, we got a call for service with a man with a knife. He threatened somebody else with a knife, or what the victim alleged was a knife. Officers arrived on scene, and the suspect was initially uncooperative, wouldn't show his hands. So the officers displayed their firearm at what's called the low ready. They didn't point it at him, but they did unholster their firearm. The suspect then ultimately complied and was detained at that point. It was determined that it wasn't a knife, and he did not threaten, in further investigation, did not threaten the victim with a knife. It was actually a key fob on a car key that looked exactly like a knife. The victim thought it was a knife. But in any event, we put that as a firearm display use of force on there, so that's why it shows up there. The suspect did not go to jail as a result of that. Secondly, there was a replica firearm that was seen in the center console of a car at the time. When the officer approached the car, he saw the firearm. He withdrew his firearm and displayed it and detained the subject at the time. The firearm turned out to be a replica. To the officer at the time, it looked just like a real firearm. So for his safety, he unholstered his firearm. Again, a second firearm display. Ultimately, the person didn't go to jail as a result of that. Next slide. Again, this is just our list of the types of uses of force. I will say, and now I'm blanking on it, whether it might have been in Q3, but I think it was Q2. The beanbag shotgun, so that was actually utilized but it was at an object, not at a person, so we don't count it as a use of force. The story goes there was a subject that was barricaded inside of his apartment. He set up a camera for surveillance to try to monitor the officers' tactics before they made entry into the house. There was no other way to reach the camera, so the sergeant shot the camera with a beanbag shotgun, not with a live round, but with a beanbag shotgun to disable the camera. So I bring it up just because it was a utilization of the shotgun, but we don't count it as a use of force because it wasn't a use of force toward an actual person. So just for some clarification on that. Next slide. Community events. We did a number of community events. Cinco de Mayo, Rotary Club. That's a community dinner to salute Rohnert Park and Cotati employees and people that do public service. We had Camp Cotati with a police department tour, and we did a police department tour for TPA, Thomas Page Academy, as well. Next slide. Just a list of some of the training that we have. Obviously, we have what's called perishable skills training that's a lot of times interwoven into this. And a lot of our training also involves de-escalation. We get a lot of questions on that in terms of the types of training that we do. But these are the specific trainings involved at least for Q2. We're always training, whether it's the peace officer standards and training, and then also doing even more training on top of the basic minimum standards that other departments may do. Next slide. Short and sweet, that's the Q2 report. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any sort of clarification outside of that.
Are there any questions from the committee about the report? No? How about in the public? Anyone in the public? Go ahead.
Yes, as we said during public comment, there was a citizen complaint, at least one, maybe two, on matters that I don't see on this report. Maybe the chief could explain why that's not on there. Thank you.
Hi again, Adrienne Lobby, resident. Thank you again for being here and making this quarterly report happen. Maybe it used to happen at the city council meeting, but it always kind of missed my attention, probably because of all the other items that are on those agendas. So I find this really useful. I really love that we're talking about use of force, not just when you kill someone or do grave bodily injury, but also, show a gun or hold up a teaser. I appreciate all this kind of detail, and I really appreciate Chief Stewart's anecdotes about what really happened, what was this situation, that situation. It just makes me feel like our police force is credible in the way they handle things. My question is this 2,430 calls for service, 114 arrests. So I don't really know, not being a police person, what this, it's a big difference. And my sort of common sense thought is, well, they're getting a lot of complaints that aren't really serious, or officer sees something, but it turns out to be something else. But I just love to have a little more information about what are the most frequent calls and what's the most frequent thing that happens, why that we end up with just a very modest amount of arrests, which I'm very happy to hear about. Thank you.
Are there any Zoom attendees that would like to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair Lawton. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. Seeing no hands on Zoom, that will end public comment.
So are there any additional comments or questions from the committee?
I have one question for the chief, just to be clear. On the stop where there's a replica firearm that was visible, is that a crime to have a a look-alike firearm in a car? And what would be the purpose of someone carrying that? What would be their intent?
Yeah, not necessarily in and of itself, right? So it depends on the totality of the circumstances. In this circumstance, there didn't appear to be any utilization of the replica firearm in a way that was a law violation, at least not an arrestable law violation at that time.
Thank you. I was just,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see someone in the car next to me display what I would believe is a firearm.
Yeah, it's not good judgment, I can tell you that right now.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's all bad.
Not smart,
Right,
uncalled for.
right.
Anyone else?
Anything else?
Okay.
I'm happy to comment on at least one of the public comments regarding calls for service and the officer initiated versus
do.
the amount of arrests and that sort of thing. I mean, a lot of what we're doing, a lot of the officer initiated calls are actually traffic stops, right? So anytime someone's doing traffic stops, doing citations, that's probably the lion's share of our officer initiated calls that you're getting, right? And so that inflates that number, at least in terms of that side of the house. So we're writing more citations than we are making arrests, for example, in Cotati, right? Which is a good thing, as you pointed out. It's actually a good thing. The majority of our arrests, as mentioned, are regarding DUI. So if you look at our crime trend data, these are if you're looking at the actual crimes going on in Cotati, those top 5 right there that I have listed on the crime trend data, DUIs, vandalism, assault, and drug-related offenses, that's what's going on in Cotati for the most part, right? So most of your arrests circle around those sorts of crimes, right? Calls for service, we get calls for service for all sorts of different things. A lot of times, most of the time, they're preserve the peace kind of calls, right? A lot of times we have calls for mental health evaluations and those sorts of things. We don't count those as arrests if someone is going to see some sort of, going to see a clinician, whether that's a 5150 hold or whether that's something that someone voluntarily needs help, and we'll assist that. We have our SAFE team, as I've talked about in the past, to help with those sorts of things. So, but those are all calls for service. We get calls for service regarding traffic complaints, parking violations, all these sorts of things. So that adds to all of our calls for service that generally don't lead in any kind of arrest or even law violation in that regard. So hopefully that's helpful. And there was the comment regarding the complaint. I think the complaint that he's talking about is the complaint that I'm talking about. So that's the complaint that we logged.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move, no other comments or questions?
Yeah, just one quick one. Chief Simmons, roughly, are we in compliance with PORAC? Basically, I don't think some people realize how many hours we're putting into training for each person. It's like 120 to 140 a year. I don't know if that's still, but we're in line with that, I believe, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We're way above post standards for our training, and the only thing is trying to sometimes find scheduled trainings throughout that year. It's the lieutenant's scheduling nightmare to try to find these trainings that don't fill up like that, because there's fewer and fewer trainings in California that we're sending people to. We try to do it locally because it's cheaper, right? But sometimes we have to send folks a little further away, always within the state. But finding classes for perishable skills training, especially like I mentioned, can be a challenge. But we have all of our posts. We're well above the post hours.
And you might say what POST stands for.
Yeah, Peace Officer Standards and Trainings. I might have mentioned that. That's basically the main California body. They're out of Sacramento, but they dictate what kind of training, the basic training, core training that officers have to have each year, that we have to at least meet the minimum standards associated with that, and then a minimum number of hours that the officers have to do as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a remark. Recently, one of the officers encountered a 91-year-old female that was lost and driving. That officer showed a lot of compassion, stayed with her, got her daughter to get her and pick her up. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know what town she was in, but the police department, it was commendable, the compassion, understanding, and resourcefulness to get help for that lady. Very appreciated.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I know the call you're talking about, and I'll pass that on to the officers.
Yeah,
They appreciate
he did a
that.
great job, and he just very professional, but a lot of compassion. And if that was my mother or grandmother, that was very commendable.
Well,
Thank you.
and that's good. And that's good that, you know, it's good that police, a lot of times, you know, it's not about law enforcement necessarily. It's about public safety. And that's an example of, you know, the thousands of calls for service that they get a year that are not associated with law violations necessarily. So that's great to hear. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from the committee or the public? Okay. We're going to move on to our next second agenda. Is a discussion of potential ALPR items for evaluation by the Committee Police Advisory Committee. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Yeah, I'll jump into this and then feel free to obviously comment after this and hopefully spark some discussion. So as you all know, the use of ALPR, which is the automated license plate readers, that technology has been the subject of several city council discussions in recent years. Last year, the council reduced our data retention to 1 month. You've heard me talk about the flock cameras that we have. We have 2 cameras, posted cameras here in the city. We also have 5 what are called Axon, a different vendor, fleet cameras in our cars, right? And those have ALPR technology as well. But in any event, so the City Council and the use of ALPRs was basically started last year and was reinitiated back up to where we were using these flock cameras. They're new to us, basically. So I presented that in the annual report and mentioned it. You know, I usually mention it sometimes during these quarterly reports. But in any event, so at the City Council meeting on August 11th, council members identified areas of interest related to ALPR that they requested this committee review. During council's discussions, members offered specific questions that they were interested in having the committee review. Potential recommendations by the committee, if any, would then be reported back to the council, right? So hopefully that makes sense, right? So there were specific items brought up by the council they were interested in regarding ALPR, and then they wanted to know if the committee had any interest in what they brought up or if there's any additional or anything like that, if any, recommendations about LPR. So basically just bringing back that discussion. And so the 4 bullet points that were identified during this council meeting that happened on August 11th. The first was balancing overall privacy concerns with public safety and considering city council goals and objectives. So basically that overarching conversation, that umbrella of, okay, the privacy concerns that some folks have regarding ALPR technology, and then the public safety benefits that ALPR technology brings to the city. Secondly, reviewing how and what data is collected, stored, shared, protected. There's been some things in the news about, data breaches and that sort of thing. So any discussion or concerns about those sorts of items. Again, weighing the public safety utility and the public safety benefits versus the storage that we have and the concerns that folks have about the data storage. Third, compare the features, benefits, and limitations of the city's ALPR vendors, including others if they exist. So this is basically a conversation about Flock versus Axon versus any other vendors that may exist and why we go with the vendors that we go with and why we would potentially not go with the ones that we haven't gone with. And finally, provide a comparison of public safety ALPR systems versus commercial versions. So, and I'm happy to discuss that more at a later time, but at the end of the day, we don't concern ourselves with commercial agreements that Flock may have or any other vendor may have with, say, for example, Lowe's, right? Lowe's has a Flock system, right? We don't concern ourselves with whatever contract they may have with Flock. In terms of sharing, we don't share data with Lowe's. Lowe's shares their data with us, period. So law enforcement agencies don't share with any commercial vendor, like no Lowe's, no HOAs, nothing like that, right? We only share with, and in this case, within California and with only certain select agencies that we deem are appropriate to share with, and that's it, right? No federal agencies, no immigration, et cetera. So we can get more into that at some point, but basically that's the discussion points and the items that council was interested in just having me, either report back on, but for purposes of today, report to you and let you know, hey, this is what they were thinking. And so at the end of the day for this, it's recommended that the committee provide staff, meaning me, with any additional topics related to ALPR, if you have any, and then I would then bring that back in a future report to you and then ultimately to council as well. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm here to happy to answer any questions regarding that, but otherwise, if there's anything that piques your interest regarding LPR that you're interested in that isn't otherwise covered here, or if there's something that is covered that the council had that you want to at least emphasize or let me know about, that would be great to know.
Thank you, Chief Simmons. I'm going to open this up to the committee if there are any questions or comments or discussion we want to have.
How did this come up? What brought this up at that meeting? Do you know?
Yeah, this was brought up by council. This wasn't initiated by the police department. That was council or members of council had an interest in bringing this conversation back up.
Okay. I see what I believe is your policies here about using it and how, is that correct that we have here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and can public see this?
Yes, sir. So it's online right now.
Okay.
Two things I wanted to mention. What exactly are the city council's concerns, specific concerns of privacy in public areas are they worried about? Anybody give any details or anything like?
Yeah, I mean the amount of detail basically is what's listed in these items here as far as the items that they were interested in. Some of the comments were that there was a concern about this kind of growing number of, or just the amount of LPR systems that are out there, that we're building a surveillance state, et cetera. That kind of like a broad concern about that, and then using that lens and wondering how that affects Cotati, if at all, in terms of privacy concerns. And you see what I'm saying? So like that, just it's the same as it's been since LPR technology has started, since any camera technology has ever started anywhere. Is okay. Some members of the public or the council have concerns about just the overarching privacy concerns versus what the benefit is for public safety.
So going on that privacy concerns, is it my understanding that flock ALPR cameras don't record audio? They just record visual?
That's correct. So flock, the two flock cameras that we have basically take a quick snapshot of a license plate.
Okay.
And the license plate can include a piece of the car that can show like the color of the car. But basically the license plate is the primary factor in that photograph. That's the only thing that we get. So we do get location data from where it came from, but we know what camera it came from. So,
okay.
Right. So we have, like for us, just distilling it down for the city, we have two cameras, right? And so this camera A reads whatever it reads, camera B, it reads whatever it reads. It's basically just a list of license plates with a time and date stamp of what camera it hit off of.
And zoomed in on the road, not on businesses, traffics, houses nearby.
Correct. Right. It's on when you look at the photographs, there's a photograph of a license plate, and then the basically part of the car that you can see the license plate is on.
Okay.
They're even less than a red light ticket camera, far less.
Yeah,
red light ticket camera will have you in the car and
show your face
and everything.
And the intention is just to pick up on stolen vehicles or a vehicle that maybe a person with a warrant is out on.
Correct. So it's twofold. So for the how we utilize it is one is as we get direct alerts. Right, so if a stolen vehicle is to drive past one of those cameras, it'll instantly alert that on that plate, and so we'll get alert and say, hey, we have a flock hit. We'll broadcast that over the radio. The dispatch will run the plate. They'll check the plate to verify, because every time that a plate hits, we have an obligation to verify that in our law enforcement systems, right? Our confidential law enforcement systems. The ones we've been using, they're not flock systems. It's the system that we have that shows that a plate was actually entered by a law enforcement agency as stolen, right? So and it pops up, it confirms that it's stolen, and then we'll go out to that area and try to circle around and find that car, right? So that's the alert portion. There's a investigative portion, what they call investigative portion, which is, so say, for example, I'll give you real examples that happened. We had a shooting that happened in Cotati, and after the shooting, we got a list of suspects, potential suspects very quickly, and then we cross-referenced that with a list of vehicles that were associated with those suspects, right? We then checked those plates in those flock cameras that we have in our city to see if any of them popped during the time of the shooting. One did, and it ended up being the suspect vehicle, and it was the exact same time as it came in, the shooting happened, and when it left our city. So those cameras told us that that car with that plate associated with that suspect had come into our city for a brief moment in time, the shooting happened, and then that exact car left the city. So that was a huge investigative component that was used for the prosecution of that case, and one of the main reasons that the district attorney filed that case. So we had another case, just real quick, a domestic violence case where we had a suspect who had hurt a victim, right, and then had left, and the victim called the police, said, this is who it is, this is what he's driving. It hit off a flock. We were able to find the car, and we arrested the suspect. So it's not just the flock alerting us on the plate, it's us being able to then know about a plate, put it in the system, because we have a 30-day retention on those plates, right? So something could happen, we could learn about a plate a week later, and then run that plate and see if it had hit off any of the cameras in our city, and then be able to identify, okay, well, hey, that car was here during this period of time, that just happens to be the window when the crime occurred, and that's a piece of evidence that we would use potentially to see if that, the suspect did or did not commit that crime. It's used exculpatory, it's used to exonerate someone too. When someone says, hey, I wasn't here, I wasn't even in your city, right? I wasn't even driving that car, right? And so we can check that plate and exonerate people too as well. So we use it in that function.
And just, to bring up, because I wanted to just, I guess, address the concerns that a lot of opponents of the flock cameras have. It's just, correct me if I'm wrong, it's only freely shared amongst other local police officer departments. But if, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, if a higher agency or federal agency wanted to get access to that, you would have to be subpoenaed or a warrant or something.
Yeah, they would
get access within that 30 days if it still exists.
Right. So the short answer is they wouldn't get access to it.
Freely wouldn't get access to it. But if the police department was subpoenaed by a higher agency, they would have to hand over, I'm guessing?
In theory, I guess there could be a court order that was somehow issued, but that would be a whole back and forth of legalese and everything like that. Yeah, and that could be true of any system anywhere of anything, right? So for purposes of flock, so we don't share with federal agencies, period. We don't share with agencies outside of California, period. The system itself is disabled from even the mistake can't happen, right? Now, what you're reading about with some agencies, before flock put those implemented those pieces, those safeguards in their actual system, then there was, I think it was, I forget what it was, Mountain View? Yeah, Mountain View had, in 2024, there was a brief time where some federal parks agency or something was able to access some shared data or something like that, right? I don't know all the details on it, but that was before Flock had put in a safeguard. Now, because of some of those incidents, Flock has put in those safeguards. By the time we came to the party and actually got our cameras, those safeguards were in place. So we were already, because we're so new with it, some of these issues that other agencies have had are before any of that systems were even in place, right? And so, but I would also say that those were also agencies that were not auditing their sharing capabilities correctly, right? So that's the other part of this, right? So the system disables us from doing what I just mentioned. We also have an agreement where each agency that we share with, some agencies do it just automatically. Hey, if they're in California, we'll share with them. I don't do it that way. I do it individually, so I know each agency that I'm sharing with, so I deliberately know which agency is looking at my data or that I can share with share with. And also, anytime someone looks at my data, there's an audit log of that. So I always know who's looking at any data. If someone wants to come in that I'm sharing with and says, hey, I wanted to run this plate. And they have the same capability with my folks too. So if one of my officers says, hey, what about this plate? And it pops off a camera in Santa Rosa is aware that I'm investigating in that. And that audit also includes who's looking at that audit, or who's looking at that, searching that field, right? So Officer X comes and I want to search this plate. That's audit. Like, I have an audit log of every officer who went into ALPR to do an investigative search. So we do our routine audits and make sure that it's for a legitimate law enforcement purpose, and they have to put their report number, what it's for, like, so they can't just willy-nilly do that, right? So we have a bunch of our own guardrails that we are using Flock for as an agency, just because every guardrail is helpful in terms of just in terms of auditing our people, making sure that the community feels safe, right? Because I do think these are beneficial tools. Yeah. And I'll go on the record, and people have heard me say this. If I didn't think it was a beneficial tool, I wouldn't be paying for it. If I didn't think there's a benefit to the city, I'm not doing it because I think it just helps cops. I'm doing it because I think it helps the city. And so if I didn't think that it was just as a tool, take out whatever folks feel about ALPR, any tool that we have that isn't useful for the city, why would I use that, right? Yeah. So I think I'm an advocate. I feel like it's useful. I feel like the 2 cameras that we've had great success stories. That's one piece of it. And the second piece of it is I also feel like we have a lot of guardrails in place, especially with our department and with Flock and the systems that they now have with what they put up in those guardrails, that I'm confident that things like data breaches, data leaks, something like that is minimized, right? So.
With that said, that list of who looks at the Flock, I'm assuming that that's subject to public records if anybody in the community wanted to see who looked at that particular log. Just as like a say, hey, you're not sharing this with people or agencies you're not supposed to. Would that be subject to public records on who went back and looked at that logs to just show that we're following policy?
Conceivably, pieces of that could be public record, yes. Okay. Some of it may not be because it falls under what's called an investigative exemption. Mm. So if there's certain investigations that are going on that are pieces of that, some of that may not be public as a result of that. But anytime we get PRAs on ALPR stuff, on fairly routinely, and so we respond accordingly, and we always consult our attorneys with that as well and make sure that we're, what we can release we do, and what we can't we don't.
Yeah, and I only mention that because because it's like we want to show the public that there's nothing to hide, that we're being held accountable to our policies. Yep. So it's good to know that information when taken into consideration. Thanks.
I just want to drill down a little more on what control does your police department have over who, I'm assuming we have Flock Camp, who they share information with? Or do they have to be subpoenaed? In other words, I know people are concerned about the immigration situation, where we would have license plate numbers, and would that be shared with immigration or ICE? And I guess what I'm asking Chief Simmons is, when you said it becomes disabled, if for example, the DOJ would ask you or Flock for some recording of license plates, is that something we have to?
No.
I mean, if it's a subpoena, I don't know.
Yeah, no, short of, and the issue would be no. So the answer is no. We wouldn't be sharing that. If some federal court order came down to us, then we'd be consulting with our district attorney. We'd be consulting with the attorney general in California. You'd hear about it on the news nationally if that was to happen. And so, that would be a unique situation if that was to happen. But no, we wouldn't be giving up any of that data unless there was some legal mandate that came down from, a battle between the state and federal courts about those sorts of things. So, but no.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I have a comment. Who takes the photos of the of the cars, license plates, and how long do you keep them?
Yeah, so it's an automatic license plate reader, so the cameras, they are just by themselves. There's no one who's taking the photo.
They're not in the police cars, or where are they?
Right, so regarding the flock cameras, there's two fixed cameras. Right? One is down by the tracks here, and one is off of on Old Red toward 116. And so anytime a car goes by, it takes a picture of that, it stores that license plate, just automatically, right? And then that goes into...
And where does it store?
So that goes into a database that is our database. Flock
Okay.
has the technology and uses the cameras, but the actual data is our data. It's Katati's data,
Okay.
right? Not Flock's data,
Okay.
right? So when that's stored, it's stored for 30 days, and our policy reflects that as well. It used to be a year. The standard is a year that other agencies use. A number of them went down to 30 days. We went down to 30 days. That was a request, or at least a conversation that we had with council last year. But yeah, so it's stored for 30 days, and it's our data, and after 30 days, it's purged.
And who then has access to it?
Our officers.
And under what circumstances would you make it available to anybody else?
So the only time that we would make it available to anybody else would be if we have an actual one-to-one sharing partnership with another law enforcement agency in the state of California.
And you don't have that?
No, we do have that with other agencies in California.
Okay.
Not outside of California and
All
not
right.
federal agencies.
Are there any other comments or?
Well, I just want to make a statement. I mean, so from what I gathered, it's retained for 30 days. It's only shared amongst within California with other agencies in California, and it only doesn't record audio. It only hones in on the streets, license plates for the sole purpose of vehicle theft, or the others that you mentioned. A person with a warrant out driving in a particular car. I'm still trying to understand the privacy in public areas concerns, and without details that the city council brings to us, I'm having a hard time understanding why this would even be an issue, why there would be opponents to this. And I know that sounds biased, but I'm really trying to dissect it. But I mean, from what I gathered, it doesn't really appear to be a privacy issue in public areas with those factors in mind.
So it's been in the media. There's been some mistakes made, and we're going to have mistakes. Now, we haven't had any here. We're lucky we have a well-trained department, a small department, which generally small departments, I believe, are better trained than large like SFPD or an LAPD or something like that. So it's going around the media, and I think city council probably, they hear from residents or something, they want to find out more about it. That's my belief, is probably how it came up. I'm not going to be exact on my stats, but we have 340 million people in the United States or something like that now. 50 million police contacts a year, about 700,000 plus cops. There's going to be mistakes made. That's simple. This, I believe, is such a simple, effective tool. It's been in use, I know, in Marin County for 25 plus years and very successfully used. Some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Marin have it and have taken their crime rate down to zero. So I understand the concerns. You don't want somebody flying a drone over your backyard staring at you in the swimming pool. That's not happening here. This is just a camera to... I think we talked about this in a meeting before about Flock, that we've had some child sex trafficking crimes and young people rescued because of these cameras. I don't know if you, but I'm a parent and grandparent. One kid is, they always say save one person through these cameras is kind of invaluable. Now, I said those numbers. I don't know if they're still relevant, but they're pretty close. So if somebody else makes a mistake in LA or some other state, we can't shut down the whole program and think, because this happened. I think it's more of a media hype personally. I don't know that for a fact. I wasn't at that meeting, or don't know the council member that brought it up. That's where I think it came from. I may be wrong. Maybe you know better, Chief, or Damon.
I would just say, I think it is fair to say that it was, there is a lot of media coverage right now about sort of the privacy concerns versus the public safety utility of these systems, and I think a lot of the media coverage is at least driven in part by, it seems to be at least driven in part by a lot of distrust with what's happening at the federal government level, and how systems like these could potentially be leveraged in some way that maybe we're not totally aware of yet. I think that's the media sort of narrative that's out there, and so you get people that read these stories, and they bring concerns up to the council, and that's ultimately how I think it came back up at the council, just to take a deep dive at the technology and sort of the privacy arrangements, agreements, policies that we use, and present it to this committee to see, if the committee had any additional things that you wanted us to look into before we, kind of do the deep dive on, sort of the nuts and bolts of the system, so that hopefully, aside from this more superficial level of media coverage, but actually dig into how it actually works, but also how it works here specifically, but also how it works as a technology, so that hopefully, I think the thought is that hopefully that there would be at least it'll be clear to everyone how the technology works, how we use it here, and then then it's up to this committee, and then ultimately the city council to decide if any of the perceived privacy issues if they outweigh the public safety benefit or not. But it's just to have the conversation at this level.
So my question still is, what does the city council want us to review? Do they have files that they want us to review?
No, I think, as Chief Simmons said earlier, those bullet points that are in the staff report, those are sort of, in terms of general categories of things they wanted the committee to look at. In each one of those bullets, granted those are summary bullets, but we would, dig into some of the nuts and bolts and the details behind each one of those categories, and then provide it, and anything else that you all would like to add to that list, and then present it back to this body to have a conversation.
Well, I think to make it easier, and maybe the city manager can correct me if I'm wrong, at the very least, these were 4 bullet points that council wanted, were items that they wanted to talk about, right? So at the very least, I'll get in. I've discussed these things in the past already before at our quarterly reports and in our annual reports, but I'll go back and I'll, give information on these items at the very least. So if the committee has something that's of interest that they want to add, great. I'll put that and make sure that I add that to a report that I can give back to you and to the council. And if not, and if you don't have any recommendations beyond what the council was already concerned about, I'll focus on this, and that's it. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Okay. That's kind of how.
So you're going to give us a report.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. So I imagine how this looks like is the next, during our quarterly, our third quarter in November, I think it is, that I'll do a Q3 report, and then I'll do an ALPR report with information at the very least addressing some of these 4 bullet points, or these 4 bullet points. And if there's something else, that we can always have a discussion. But this was more an opportunity to see, is there anything else that you guys have that you'd like me to add based on what you know with these 4 things? If there isn't, great, I'll focus on these. If these look like something that you're interested in, perfect. But the council definitely was interested and brought these up. So at the very least, that's what I'll be doing. Is that
okay.
fair?
Yes, that's very clear.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
I've never read your policy on the LPRs, and it's very concise and short, which I like. Mm-hmm. So most of the bullet points are actually in your policy.
They are.
So I don't know if the council has reviewed your policy, but that the only one that isn't is what other vendors are out there for you. That might be a budget thing besides who to use. That's up to them.
Yeah.
But as I was reading back and when I read that, I tried to read your policy, And I don't think a lot of people understand what it takes to get that information. You don't just get to randomly everybody go in and start. You have to have a reason. So, and they're all trained on the system. We're lucky to have that too. So.
And some, if not all of this, as you point out, is just reiterating stuff that's been said before and just re-educating folks and just reassuring people about the systems that we're using and how we're using them.
I think it's media driven too. The other part is we just had the case in the TV, for lack of a better term, watching the news when an officer was using it against somebody in some other big department, which can happen anywhere, but with the numbers you're dealing with in the United States, we're pretty fortunate. I don't like it when people say, oh, we're just a small department. There's a lot of benefits to a small department that you don't have with a large department, that you can't. To try to get a sit down with the chief of San Francisco wouldn't happen. I mean, it wouldn't just be, hey, we're going doing this back and forth like we do with the chief here. We're very fortunate we can do that. So whether you like it or not, what something he's doing, at least we get to see him and ask him about it, whether we like what he's doing or not doing. So that's, I think we're fortunate in that part. Also, I think it's, obviously I'm a big proponent of the LPRs because I've seen them firsthand how valuable they are, incredibly valuable. So, and not just for simple, what I call simple stolen cars. This involves major homicides, anything, major. So once you answer their questions satisfactory as far as the right to privacy in public, I think it would be, the other thing would be the budgetary issue, I guess.
Sure.
So that's just my 2 cents.
And I just wanted to go on the record, like, I don't want to undermine people's opponents of LPR's concerns. It's like, is this an intro to a surveillance state, and there's a lot of, exaggeration of what it could be, a dystopian thing of a future. But, I mean, this gives our police department an advantage to just prevent crime. And, but I do understand where people, my neighbors, are coming from who are opponents of this. Nobody wants to be all video cameraed everywhere, but this is in specific locations, strategized with a target and safeguards set in place. And I mean, my feel on it is that it wouldn't get out of control. So I just wanted to make that statement that I do understand where people are coming from, opponents of LPR, but it is, I think the benefit outweighs the minor or suspected privacy concerns that we brought up today. It doesn't, record audio. It's specifically on cars or roads. It's not on businesses looking through windows or anything like that. So I think we had a good conversation here on this, and I have no concerns or things that I would want to see City Council take into consideration with this technology. Thank you.
And I'll just add that I too am also sensitive to folks that have privacy concerns. So I don't want it to sound like I'm just blindly advocating for something that without looking at all sides of that. So that's why we're here, to even just have the discussion to hopefully alleviate some of those concerns that some folks may have. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but at least it offers information to people that they can potentially utilize.
I want to add something. I'm not sure how to word it. Everywhere you go, in a store, in a parking lot, in a neighborhood, the doorbell cameras, which people sign up to work with you if there's a crime in that area. You could. Flock is a tool, a constructive tool in law enforcement. Just as every store with surveillance and recordings in their parking lots, their stores, neighborhoods with cameras, what is the difference? Mm-hmm. It's a tool. It's for safety. So I just wanted to bring that up, that the privacy thing, you're recorded everywhere you go all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Whether you know it or you don't.
Right.
I think one of the most important things, and if you can give us a report, is to emphasize the fact that we register our cars with our license plates. And we do that saying that we're going to obey the law with our car, anyway. And I think, I don't know if Oliver's or Lowe's is taking pictures of me like a red light camera. I know what a red light camera will do, but I think, and I'm happy to have you give us a report that we can get back to City Council that this really is just a tool to determine is your car legally where it's supposed to be? And are you doing what you're supposed to be legally? And I understand the concerns, but I carry a phone around and they know where I am all the time, whatever I'm doing. So the fact that my license plate's being recorded at a stoplight doesn't really register as, I understand the concern about sharing that information with other people. But law enforcement is law enforcement, and we have to adhere to that. And I would prefer that no one uses a gun, but it's just not realistic.
You and me both.
So that's my...
There's some people in the public who may wish to speak if we want to give them a chance to.
Well, that's our next item.
Okay.
And if I can just, one last bit of clarification, just, the flock camera takes a picture of the plate and that's it. So it doesn't give the actual registered owner information, none of that. We'd have to go through our separate systems to figure that out. And again, those are also auditable systems, confidential systems, sensitive systems, law enforcement only systems, right? So the picture itself doesn't give any information but the picture of the plate. That's it. So there's nothing through Flock that gives us any information on even who owns the car, where the car, nothing about it except for that picture. So we would have to then do our own investigative tools and use the systems that we already have in place to investigate crimes anyway to go forward with that, right? So just so the public knows that it's not giving us information that isn't otherwise just you. If you were walking down the street and you saw that plate, that's all you'd know too, right? That's all we know until we dig further into that. And in order to do that, we have to have a right to know, right? An investigative reason, a crime reason to look into that. We can't even shotgun it and go, well, let's just see all the different plates that happened today. That's not something that we do. We have to have a legitimate law enforcement reason for that, right? If we had a shooting and it was a yellow sedan that left the scene during this 5-minute window, we could do a search of yellow sedans in the 5-minute window to see if Flock hit any plates, and then that could be an investigative function. But again, the plate's not telling us any information unless we go that step further to the second, third, fourth level into systems that we have that are obviously confidential systems and just like what we do every day. So anyway, just some clarification on that.
Any other committee members comment? So I would like to open comments to the public.
Oh, thank you very much, Adrian Lobby. I am the resident. There's a lot of good news about all this, that it's 30 days, that it's not shared with federal agencies, that there is a lot of controls on who you share it with and how, that it's only the license plate. All that sounds like the best we can do. And I'm still here to say, let's take them down. And the reason I'm saying that really is what's going on in our country. As you mentioned, Damien, that what's going on now is unprecedented. I have gone through many presidential administrations. Several of them I was terrified when the president got elected and his party got in charge of things. And the worst things they did was they cut budgets out of social services. They killed a lot of people overseas. They did other things that I found really objectionable. but I have never seen this, where very quickly many, many civil servants were replaced, fired, gotten rid of, and then higher levels of them were replaced by people who would toe the party line. I've never seen a president who went to court over and over again to overturn rules, court decisions. Oh, we'll go up and appeal. We'll appeal to the Supreme Court, all in the service of getting more and more presidential power and have the things that this party believes in and this group of people believes in instituted throughout our country. So I think we think we're going to have these good people sitting here in 5 years or 5 months, and that's going to be okay because they're careful, watchful, caring people. That may not be true. That might not be true in California. We might have federal troops take over our State Department in California and say, well, this person's gone, this agency gone. This person's in charge of that agency that now can get our stuff. And, I mean, it seems incredible. It seems very unlikely. I feel kind of stupid sitting up here, standing here and saying these things. But what I've seen makes me scared. And I would like you to really hear that it's a real fear. And then there's just this sort of creepiness. Like I think about, well, what do? I drive my car. I go to Oliver's and back. I go to a restaurant and back. And then I get on the freeway to go to work and I come home. Why would I care if anyone knows I do these things? But I do care. It's creepy. It's creepy that anyone could look and say, oh, look, she was there at this time. And I hear you saying, well, we're always surveilled. It's different when it's the government doing it. It just is. It's different when it's a police department that has guns. It just is. So my strong recommendation is that you tell the city council that you think this is the wrong thing at this time and we should get out of the contract. Thanks.
Well, that was interesting. That is the liberal view of what's going on. I'd have to ask all of you, the chief of police, did you take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America? In the Constitution is the immigration policy that is the purview of the federal government. Now, Ms. Laube and I were both alive back when Eisenhower was president. I was a child. I didn't know anything about him deporting 1 million people at that time. Never heard about it at all. The concerns that we have now, because the Democrat Party relies on these illegal people that they brought into the state for voters, at least that's the common thing, is that now we don't want to deport these people. But frankly, it is the federal government's ability to do this, not the state to prevent them. Now, I would say that we need to go one step further. I'd like to know why our chief of police, who took an oath of office to defend the Constitution, is getting in the way, throwing obstacles in the way of the federal government. I know the council has told him to do that and wants him to do that. But as you've all said up here, this is a tool. It's a very valuable tool. When people break the law, they murder, rape, shoot people, whatever, and they're trying to be tracked down, this is a valuable tool, and that's what it's supposed to be used for. Now, the red light camera is different. It takes a picture of the person in the car as they go through. These, as he says, take a picture of the license plate. Well, that's all fine and dandy. Everything has problems related to it. Now, I've heard, you talk about the horror stories we hear. I've heard of police officers misusing this, that they use it to track their spouse or whatever and do harm to them. That's a very rare circumstance. I have no problem with these flock cameras because if they're used properly. And frankly, I haven't seen any evidence to say that they aren't. I was down at the gym the other day and somebody was telling me, oh yeah, they track you every step of your way, all the way out of your house and wherever you're going. That's nonsense. You have 2 cameras in town. They can't do that. So you're going to hear a lot of hype about this stuff. Yeah, there is a problem with privacy. But once you're out on the street, anybody can take a picture. They're public streets. That's what they're called, public. You can't prevent a person from taking pictures of you or anything else. I suppose that they would have to get permission if they're going to publish them somewhere, but you can't stop them any more than you could stop me if I had my camera on from filming you in this area here, because this is a public meeting and it's protected by the Brown Act. And that brings me to the last thing I want to say, and that's related to item 11 on your agenda. There is no such thing in the Brown Act as a non-action agenda items. We went through this on the council. That needs to be removed and taken off your agenda. I know it's aside from what we're talking about, but I wanted to bring that up because I'm going to leave. I'm not going to wait and say I want to raise my hand at that point. But anyway, I think the flock cameras are necessary. They're good. I don't think it's, frankly, you know, I'd like somebody to tell me, a liberal to tell me, what is the problem with the camera going after an illegal alien that's a rapist, a murderer, or here illegally? Because you're here illegally, you broke the law. That's what this gentleman is supposed to be doing, is prosecuting people for breaking the law. And frankly, I think it's kind of not facetious, but just paradoxical that we talk about, oh yeah, they're invading privacy because we don't want these people deported. They broke the law to get here, or they overstayed visas. There's a problem with that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Thank you, Chair Lawton. We'll check in with our Zoom attendees. If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand icon. The first name is Meredith. Meredith, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Meredith Weissman, and I really appreciate this opportunity to share my perspective and like Adrian, I was a big proponent of this committee being created, and this is my first time here, and I apologize for that. I also do want to follow up on Adrian's comments. I agree with every single thing she said. There is, you know, it's great that we have these amazing tools that can do these amazing things. And if we lived in a world where we could all feel confident that they were going to be used safely forever, that would be a really nice world. It's not the world that we live in. Earlier, somebody mentioned how successful these cameras have been, particularly in Marin County. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear who that was speaking about it. And I was so glad to hear about Marin, because actually the Marin County did have a court case against them for illegally sharing millions of driver's license plate scans and location data with more than 400 out-of-state agencies, including ICE and Border Patrol, which is a violation of California law, SB 34 and SB 54. And so even right next door in Marin, we see these types of misuse of this information that's collected from us. And it happens, unfortunately, it's not rare. It happens a lot that it's misused. It's just too easy for folks to use and access. There's so much, many other tools that can be used and that are used. Our police, in this very meeting, shared all the success that they've had over the past year, and how little violent crime there is, which is just great to hear as a resident. You know, I think that this type of digital surveillance is really big business. It's multi-million-dollar operations, and there's lots of companies that are looking to make money off of government contracts, and they don't always work the way that they're advertised to work. So studies have shown that ALPRs have a high error rate and low efficacy for so-called hits connected to crime. In California, just in California alone, multiple people have been wrongly held at gunpoint due to these types of errors that happen. You know, we think that how can a camera lie, but a camera can lie. And of course, it's worth it just to note that everybody isn't affected equally by this type of surveillance. You know, I'm barely affected at all. I work remotely and I get most of my stuff delivered. So in case anybody's curious, and I don't have a Ring camera, so you know, I hardly ever go anywhere. You might see me walking my dog. That's about it. So I mean, I get gas less than once a month. So I'm not particularly concerned about myself being surveilled. Can you make a final point for us, please? Yes. This type of surveillance fuels racial injustice. These technologies compound over-policing and over-incarceration of Black and brown communities. They endanger abortion rights, obviously not in Cotati, but overall. They threaten immigrant communities. They chill free speech. And so I'm asking, like Adrian did, that this committee encourage the City Council to pull out entirely. Okay, thank you. Any other?
Final call for comments from our Zoom audience. If you have a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. Seeing no further hands, that will end public comment.
Thank you. So are there any other additional comments or questions the committee has regarding this topic? So I just want to get clear, and we can vote on this, or my understanding is that City Council wants you to give us a report regarding license plate surveillance. So let's go to financial considerations. Is this an impact on the department financially, or?
So yes, the flock cameras are not free. So we do pay for the flock cameras.
So do you then have to pay to get information, or would you need an assistant to gather data? Is there any concern about your staff or?
No, as much as I'd like to plug for more staff and more money, no. We have a records analyst, and the functionality is fairly simple for our officers to use, and we can gather the data that we need. Thank you for that question.
I have just a piggyback on that. I thought I recall reading that this was a $60,000 grant that we received. Is that true? A couple of years ago, when the City Council wanted the flock cameras, that we received funding for this, or did I read that wrong?
I think that might have been earlier. There was a vendor called the Vigilant System, and I think that there may have been some grant monies attached to that. I wasn't here for that. I can't speak to that necessarily, but these two particular flock cameras were not grant funded.
Oh, okay. All right. Just read that. Sorry.
Anyone else? Is there? Well, never mind. I was just wondering if you would want to comment at all, Chief Simmons, on the virtual statement that was made to verify that this information isn't shared, or?
Yeah, I can verify that our information is not shared. It's not shared with, I don't know what case is being cited there, or what, I did a quick search of Marin. I didn't see anything, but I don't know what case is being referenced there. All I can say is that for us, the system will not share, and we will not share with federal agencies or any agencies out of state. And we handpick one-to-one the agencies, even in California. So we don't even do a blanket sharing of all California agencies. We are not sharing with every single California agency. We only do it with ones who request to share, that we vet and verify, and then we'll agree to share or not. There are certain agencies in California that I will not share with.
Okay, thank you.
I think that might have come from when these systems first came out. You had to set them up, and you could have toggled the wrong button, and everybody could get access to the information. But I think that's all corrected now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, what you're seeing, what's been like the Mountain View, for example, was before the system the system still allowed that, or at least there was some way that that happened, and you also have an agency that wasn't doing proper auditing. So when you have those two things happen, that could be a potential problem. Flock solved the problem on their end and said, okay, well, we're gonna get rid of the fact that they can, even someone who mistakenly tries to do that, or there's an omission where they should have done something and they should have added something when they didn't, whatever it is, Flock has disabled that functionality in the system. It simply can't do it. Even if I said, hey, I really want to share with ICE right now, the system will not let me do it.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? No?
Okay.
So we'll move on. Are there any additional reports from the staff?
No, ma'am.
Does anyone on the committee wish to give a report? I'll give a report. I was at the Accordion Festival and ran into Tyler and Jeff. And it was just a really great conversation about how community involved the police department is. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Great, thank you very much.
I would add to that, Tyler, he spoke very well and explained the advantages of being in a small department, loving Katati, and how he was really refreshing.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. So I'd like to open the meeting for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to make any comments at this time?
Thank you, Chair Lawton. Checking in with our Zoom attendees. One more chance for public comment. Please use the raise hand icon. Seeing no further hands.
Okay, was there any information received after the agenda was published?
There was one written public comment received that was distributed to the council or the committee and posted online to the HTML agenda. Thank you.
All right. So with no other comments or concerns, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at...
Do we want does the council want any action from us, or were our comments sufficient?
I think...
No, we're good. I have the information. I have the information.
The police department, and they're going to report to us on this information.
I have all the information that I need. I took some notes, and then I'll make sure that I include all of that in the report back to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:37, 38?
We're going to have 7:32.
32.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.